Welcome to the longevity module. Okay, so lesson one, we're going to start off with the dynamic and relative concept of health. And then we'll move on to food for thought from populations with the longest life expectancies. In lesson three, we'll look at the top causes of death to get a frame of reference as to what to focus on for maximizing longevity. And we'll also look at population level over and under consumption concerns. In lesson four, we'll look at the health hype behind intermittent fasting and compare it to the research evidence. In lesson five, we'll look at age-related losses of muscle and strength, and also old versus new models of longevity. And we will wrap things up looking at the big picture of nutrition for maximizing health span. Okay, let's kick things off with lesson one, the dynamic and relative concept of health. This here is Johannes Burcher, and he defined health in a way that was different than the original definition of the World Health Organization, who essentially said that health is a relative absence of disease. So Johannes Burcher's definition is evolved from that, since he adds a bit of relativism to that definition, and it's more highly evolved and it encompasses more situations, and I think it's a great definition of health as compared to the original one. So, reading his definition verbatim, health is a dynamic state of well-being characterized by a physical, mental, and social potential which satisfies the demands of a life commensurate with age, culture, and personal responsibility. If the potential is insufficient to satisfy these demands, the state is disease. So yes, kind of a mouthful, but it will begin to gel as I explain it in the following slides. So there's two different types of health potential that Johannes Burcher is referring to. And one type is personally acquired health potential, and the other type is biologically given potential. So personally acquired health potential encompasses physical fitness, intellectual development, psychological development, social capital, and interpersonal communication. And biologically given health potential includes genetic predisposition. In other words, the cards you were dealt, your gifts and challenges, and of course, yes, the injustice of biology. So at birth, you start off with a very high potential. And when we're looking at biologically given potential, here it is over here, this flashed line. And then over here, we've got personally acquired potential being the dotted line. So you start off with, at birth, with maximal biologically given potential. And that inevitably diminishes over time until you reach death. Now, your personally acquired potential, which is things that you have control over gaining, that can hypothetically start, well, it starts just about zero at birth, and it can hypothetically continually increase with time, hypothetically. Although it does tend to plateau out with folks at a certain point in the life cycle. So that is the two types of biologically, or rather, the two types of health potential, which are, once again, personally acquired and biologically given health potential. Now, these two types of health potential are going to be important for the next slide, where I describe the relative definition of health. So what we have over here on this arrow, that's your health potential. So we're talking about biologically given potential as well as acquired health potential. And over here are the demands or the stressors of life, or the vectors in your life that are going to antagonize your potential throughout the course of your life. So Over here on the left, we have a model where there is a lot of potential. So a lot of biologically given potential, maybe this person is young, and a lot of acquired potential. Maybe this person is quite physically fit, quite socially fit, etc., quite psychologically fit. And over here are the demands of life, the stressors, the disease vectors, if you will. And notice how his health potential outpaces or outweighs or is of greater magnitude than the demands placed on his potential, the demands or stressors of his life. So therefore, he is in a net state of health. Now we go over to this person, has the same magnitude of demands or stressors in life, but his health potential is lower, and the demands in his life outpace the health potential. So therefore, he is in a relative state of disease. Okay, even though he has the same amount of stressors or demands in life or disease vectors in life as this guy right here, he just has lower biologically acquired potential, biologically given potential, and or acquired potential for health. So now we go on to this third example. So this guy has the same amount of acquired health potential and biologically given potential as this guy over here, but he has lower demands. So if we were to paint a scenario over here, let's imagine this is somebody whose health potential is compromised by, let's say, a chronic disease like type 1 diabetes. But let's imagine that he is properly managing it. And he's managing it behaviorally, medically, everything else. So it's under control. And in spite of having that chronic disease, he or we can even say he has, let's say he has type 2 diabetes, but he's managing it properly. And let's imagine the stressors in his life are well managed, well mitigated. These sort of forces in life that tend to antagonize your acquired potential and your biological potential as well. Now, this guy is in a state of health, net state of health, despite the fact that he has type 2 diabetes, despite the fact that he has a chronic disease. So, what I want to drive home here is that a net state of health is relative. So, you can be in a perfect state of health, in quotes. For example, imagine if this first guy over here, he has a lot of acquired potential and a lot of biologically given potential. But let's imagine that the demands in his life, the stressors in his life, are through the roof, and they outpace, and he cannot keep up. His health potential cannot keep up with the demands in his life. So that would put him at a net state of disease, even though he has higher health potential than these other two. So that's the point. So the demands, stressors of life vary throughout the life cycle and also vary across cultures. And the relative ability for total health potential to meet these demands is what dictates the dynamics of relative health and disease, or of a net state of health or a net state of disease. And that's your new definition and your new perspective of health. So let's distinguish between lifespan versus health span. Lifespan is basically the length of time that you can basically live and survive. Health span is the amount of time you spend during your lifespan without disease or with a minimal degree of debilitating disease. So, in other words, health span is the total number of years lived by an individual, whereas health span is the number of disease-free years lived by an individual. And that concludes lesson 1. I'll see you on lesson 2, where we talk about populations with the longest lifespans and some potential lessons we can learn from them.